love this little, is that it? Yeah, that's a chisel point on that. I will say this SwissTool has a lot of cool tools on it. It's just heavier.
Warning, this product may fail.
Look at that. If you want to save the day with you, carry a knife. If you can possibly fit it in, carry some type of multi-tool with you. Maybe it's a Swiss Army knife, maybe a more advanced multi-tool with more capabilities. If you want to impress people while you're saving the day, break out a Victorinox SwissTool, because it will leave an impression on whoever's watching you. Fix whatever needs to be fixed. I know I would feel that way. If someone busted this out and said, hey, you know what, I got this, and out comes this highly polished and gleaming Victorinox SwissTool, you know, even not being a gear dude, which I am. Hi everybody, Nut and Fancy here. Tabletop review of the Victorinox SwissTool if you haven't figured it out. But if they busted this out, I'd be going, yo dude, you know MTs. That is a great choice. And this enjoys an amazing fan club the world over. Often sold out on all kinds of websites, the Victorinox SwissTool continues to sell well for the company. And there's lots of reasons why. And in the tabletop review that I'm going to do today, you're going to see several of them. And in summary, I mean, first off, look at it. It's gorgeous. There's not a lot of MTs, at least with this highly polished version, that can compare to this. We're talking second type of cool. We'll talk about that later in my talking points as I attempt to cover all the details of this outstanding multi-tool option for you guys. Go down all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. Probably forget a few things along the way. We're going to have fun doing it, and I'm going to go in detail like I always do on the feature set, the quality, the construction, how I perceive the POU of this multi-tool. Referencing back to my video, the multi-tool continuum, I talked about the different categories as I see them in the Nut and Fancy project, and that's how I'm going to approach this. Starting off with the talking points, size and weight. Okay, that drives right to the categories again, and this is a heavy duty multi-tool. Anything over 10 ounces for the multi-tool itself, to me, comprises or actually goes into that category. By the way, in case you're wondering, this model here is the SwissTool RS. Let me get the numbers right. Model number 53935. This one, 53935. In the back is a black oxide SwissTool. Awesome, no doubt, for military operations. Anybody who wants low reflectivity, and it's going to be model 53954. Let me see if I'm getting the box numbers right. There we go, 53954, right there. The tool selections on these two vary slightly. The RS, as we will see, includes scissors and a rescue cutting blade. Okay, shown right here. That's what I call it, rescue cutting. Some guys call it a belt or seat belt cutter, and it dispenses with a file. The black version in the back, actually, and we're going to get into more specifics when I cover the tools in here, actually does not have a rescue cutting blade. Instead, a file, and of course it's blackened. Both are outstanding, both are excellent, heavy duty multi-tool options. It's not always going to be a smart choice to carry a big multi-tool like this. Why do I say that? Because I think a lot of people, and I've seen this in my own experience, just don't carry them with them. You know, whether we're talking about guns, large knives, big multi-tools, the propensity for the user is going to leave them at home, leave them in the car, and just after a while, after the excitement of the purchase has worn off, they don't carry them. Now, if you are disciplined and you say, you know, in my loadout, I'm always going to have this, as opposed to maybe a more compact and easy to carry option, like I've talked about in the project several times, maybe a Leatherman S2 Juice, which represents the light category in MTs. You know, I say more power to you. If you can carry the firepower of a large multi-tool and deal with its 10.5 ounce weight, because that's what it is, about 10.5 ounces, a little bit more, maybe like 10.2 or something like that, then I say rock on, because you will get a lot of capability in this MT, as we'll see. The size for what it is actually pretty reasonable. is for all the tools and capabilities that the SwissTool incorporates, it's pretty compact. Now, a lot of dudes are willing to take the extra weight of a heavy-duty MT like this SwissTool in order to get these types of pliers. In other words, more cutting capability, more gripping capability, and less flexing of the plier head. Again, we're trying to mimic the capabilities of a full-size set of pliers. Maybe a hybrid componentry between different types of pliers while we do it. Now, against my reference medium-duty multi-tool, the Charge series or the Wave series, they're both excellent. The pliers on the SwissTool are superior as far as strength goes. You can see they're thicker. They do adopt a somewhat different design element. They're more broad and they have more gripping area, and it just depends on what you want out of your set of pliers. Generally speaking, this is just me, I like more precise pliers. I like the needle nose pliers in my MT. They are more useful to me. Now these again are kind of a hybrid, because they're not really needle nose, they're not really blunt nose, but they are blunter, as you can see, just by way of contrast against the Charges. Depends on who you are. Very strong, but again, we've added about 2 ounces over the weight of the Charge in order to get it, and a few other capabilities too, which I'll mention as well. But if we do an in-category comparison of the SwissTool, then maybe we would roll in the also excellent Leatherman Super Tool 300. Okay, so against a medium duty MT, this one is kind of the big bully on the block until we roll in the ST300, because these pliers, since we're talking about it, we'll cover them in detail, in my opinion, are better than the SwissTools for heavy duty work. Proven by me by cutting some nails. I found that the MT, the SwissTool, does a good job. There is a little bit of flex in the head, side to side, at least on the size of nails that I'm showing you here. And you got to really bear down on it, and they do cut it. Additionally, the opening for the hard wire cutting portion on the SwissTool is not that big. It's very narrow actually. In comparison to the Super Tool 300, it's bigger and accepts larger diameter of wire, and it has the added advantage, and I think this is huge, and it will become commonplace in the MT world, replaceable cutters on it. Huge. The SwissTool does not have that. What does that mean? If you damage the cutting surfaces on your multi-tool, you're pretty much going to have to live with it. Not going to be covered under warranty, I can pretty much guarantee you, because they will look at that as abuse, possibly. I don't know. They might, but I think they'll probably just say, dude, sorry. Although I do hear Victorinox has outstanding customer service. Very, very good from what I hear. And they're very responsive to their customers. So that's another big advantage of SwissTool. But getting back to the pliers, this to me is a heavier duty design. Albeit it still kind of wears the needle nose profile on the Super Tool 300 versus a more blunt nose, once again opting for more grip area on the SwissTool. How do they close? The preciseness of the grind, you can see it right here. They kind of close at the end. That's the blackened SwissTool. Here we go with the polished, just to have 2 data points for that. Same. They don't close along the whole length. Again, it just depends on who you are and what's important to you. Here's a Super Tool 300. They kind of have the same thing going on. See how they close on the end there? Pretty, and also that gripping area is about the same between the two for getting off bolts and nuts and stuff. I think both are outstanding. I love the design on the plier head, and also my understanding is, as of 2002, Victorinox redesigned the plier heads. And what they did is reversed the pivot direction on the pivot point. And so when you bear down on, and I don't want to get into a lot of detail about this, and you are twisting off in a counterclockwise motion a difficult bolt, it actually works to torque the plier head closed on that. And that I thought was very thoughtful and innovative. And that was a very purposeful change in the SwissTool lineup. By the way, this has been out since 1997, still going strong and still carrying on the fame and the quality that Victorinox is known for. That'll get us to, and I've kind of already addressed it in the talk points. I'm going to jump around too, dudes, in this, but ease of use and design elegance. This is where I'm going to go over the features. Ease of use actually depends on what you define as being your most useful tool out of the MT. If it is the plier head, then I think it's extremely easy to deploy. I don't think it's a big deal at all to unfold a multi-tool to access the pliers. Not to me. Some guys may differ. I know a lot of my military buddies really like the deploying pliers. Where is it? I think I've shown it to you before. Here we go. Kind of like this medium category Gerber diesel. You know how you have some quick deploying pliers like that. Again, these are kind of medium duty pliers. See how they're thinner? They're not really HD. But, you know, some dudes like that. To them, that's their most often used tool out of the MT, and they like that. I don't mind having to unfold it. In fact, what I most often access out of my MT are the other tools. And thankfully, with the SwissTool, very well designed, because pretty much everything is accessible from the outside, kind of along the lines of the Charge. And that's one of the big things that I love about this reference medium duty multi-tool. Everything is accessible from the outside. And in the Charge's favor, I know I say this a lot, with one hand. You know, if you need a knife and you only have one hand, you can do that with the Charge series, the Wave series, and the Surge as well. Maybe not the Victorinox. They are accessible from the exterior of the tool, but you're going to need two hands to do it. So that's a slight disadvantage. They would have to change the entire tool design to change that. On the upside, there they are. And notice how they come out with such precision. Hear that? And then you can see the individual springs that is assigned to each tool as well. Kind of like, it looks like kind of those springs of a music box. There's your lock, and you can see how it kind of flexes. And I like it when a tool comes out individually. You know, there might be some debate on this. I don't know. I don't follow the forums, but you know, some guys will maybe like it when a tool clumps. And what do I mean by that? In other words, and I think we'll use a Super Tool 300 again for this, when I extract a tool, I have others come out sympathetically with that. I don't like that. If I have a choice, I'd like them to come out individually. As I use my my MT more often, I'll learn where all the tools are. I don't need to look at them every time I extract them. And to me, that's an inelegant design. But there's other guys that disagree. They like that. They like, well, I'd like to see all my tools, and I go, oh yeah, that's the one I want. Push the rest down. To me, that's just waste time and waste, you know, movement. You don't have to worry about that with a Victorinox SwissTool. It's just outstanding. Every tool comes out individually and non-sympathetically. And this will take us to our tool review. There's the Victorinox can opener, one of the best designed can openers in my experience in the world. Just absolutely love it. I say that, and I have said it in my Swiss Army knife reviews. And this is a family resemblance multi-tool. In other words, a lot of the things you will see on the inside are going to resemble or be exactly identical to a lot of Swiss Army knives. That's to be expected. On the tip of this one, we have the 5mm flat-bladed screwdriver, cap lifter. I'm not cap lifter, but our screwdriver. Can't speak. Our can opener as well. Love it. And that to me is kind of a basic tool requirement. Here's our saw. Now this again is the blackened SwissTool. The polished one in the background, I did use a saw out in the woods. Very effective, locks, very little play. As are all Victorinox saws. They work. You know, granted they're small, but man, the saw sure is a nice thing to have. You know, for a lot of different uses, like I've talked about in my other reviews, a saw sure can come in handy. For maybe wilderness craft or whatever type, shelter building, trap building, it's nice to have a saw option, and it works outstandingly in the SwissTool. And I'll break out my long-bladed 7.5mm flat-bladed screwdriver. And you can see this one is different from a Swiss Army knife version in that it has some length to it. Okay, and that is a big advantage to some users. They really like that over maybe some other medium category multi-tools like the Charge. Again, we're taking more weight to do it, but man, is it worth it. Then we have our cap lifter, our wire bender, I guess, as well on that flat blade. Decent. Next up, the chisel scraper in the SwissTool. And incidentally, I'm going to mention something about the tool extraction feature on the SwissTool right here. You can see that you're going to need nail nicks or fingernails to extract the tools. It's not hard, but you have to kind of reverse the tool depending on which one you want to get out. And since they are not sympathetic, they deploy individually, you might have to do a little hunting until you're very familiar with the MT. By way of contrast, the Super Tool 300 is not that way. You dig the tool from the top. Again, it's sympathetic deploying, so you won't go hunting as much, even though I still think you're wasting effort putting everything down and locking up the one you want. Just something to think about. This is a chisel scraper on the Super Tool. I better hurry too, otherwise it's going to be a long review. I got to crank it. Love it. And you see, that's just what it is. It's a chisel tip on that with wire strippers on the base. This came in handy, incidentally, as we were doing some knife testing when that cold steel, what was it, the Pocket Bushman busted. Dude, and we were digging out pieces of the blade from the wood. I love having the chisel scraper on a multi-tool, and as far as I know, this is the only one that has it. And it is a big selling point on a SwissTool, in my opinion. Because if you don't have it, guess what? You're going to have to use your blade to dig out with. And I'd prefer to preserve my blade, its sharpness, the delicate tip for more important tasks. Enter the chisel scraper. I did find out, however, that the tool steel that Victorinox uses is not super hard. You can see it kind of got nicked up a little bit as it ran into the metal bits in the log and damaged a little bit. I haven't tried to touch it up yet because I don't think it's needed at this point, but just something to be made aware of. And a lot of guys will say, well, I'd rather have the slightly softer steel in the Victorinox SwissTool so it doesn't chip, because I can repair that. Once it's chipped, it's busted. The tool, by the way, is not user serviceable. They're permanently pinned. That seems to be a trend amongst all the MT makers, kind of a downside. I love it. The Charge TTI that I showed you here, not this AL, had those torque security screws on them that you can get in and service the tools. All MT manufacturers should do that. But chisel scraper, outstanding addition to the tool set. I find it's very useful and a very effective wire stripper, incidentally, as well. Next up, oh, I love this. This is way cool. This is what Victorinox calls, make sure I get the name right, the strong crate opener, or I hope I'm getting that right, or it's a large blade screwdriver as well. 7.5 millimeter, I think, is what that is. This is very nice to have for light duty, I repeat, light duty wedging. If you need to wedge something open, pry something open, as far as I know, again, this is the only multi-tool that has that. Okay, this is not something you want to tweak on really hard, but look how flat that is. Again, we can preserve our knife blade and use this instead. Very, very useful. On this side, I haven't yet covered the main tools. I did the saw, I guess. On this side, the regular blade. Nothing special to say there, except I love that Victorinox made it a regular pin blade. Right out of a Swiss Army knife, in fact. Same steel as a Swiss Army knife, so it's going to be easy to sharpen. It will hold an edge adequately. Against the adjacent category, Charge AL, I still prefer this knife blade much more. I love how it's one hand deployable once again in the Charge series, Surge, Wave. Love it. It's cool. I love the shape of it. I like the steel. It's a better steel, in my opinion, 154 cm. I think some guys have said, well, Leatherman, there have been problems with the blades breaking. I haven't heard of that, okay? Of all the ones I've used, I just have not heard of it. I haven't heard any reliable reports, so I kind of take it as a rumor until I can verify it. I find it's outstanding. But so is the Victorinox. It's just not one hand deployable. It's just a great pen blade. In some of their other models, kind of like the SwissTool Spirit, they put in that funky peanut butter blade, as a lot of dudes call it, and they opted for, a weird shape, serrated, so it's going to be impossible to sharpen unless you're an expert. It doesn't have a fine tip for, digging stuff out. It's useful, I guess, but I much prefer what they have here. Just a regular pen blade. Now remember, dudes, the polished one is the RS version. You can kind of think of it as standing for rescue saw or rescue something. And what that means, again, is we've opted to bail on the file in this polished version and instead go with a rescue cutter. I like having that option on a full-size multi-tool, and I'm talking medium category on up, and the SwissTool has it. Got to get a drink. There we go. And this cuts very aggressively. I tested it on some nylon, some rope. Very impressed with it. Nice curvature to it, the reverse curvature, so it actually brings in the material into the cutting edge. Scallop serrations. This is a blade, in my opinion, that you preserve for, I shouldn't say preserve, but I would reserve it for probably emergency cutting or rope cutting, I guess. It doesn't matter. I just wouldn't go thrashing on it. So I always retain that capability to cut through materials very quickly. Might be a pant leg to access a compound fracture. You know, this would be a great blade to do it. The way you can remember it on the polished Victorinox SwissTool RS is look for the red. The red means rescue, it means first aid, and that is the side. This is just from Nut and Fancy. No one told me this. That's where your rescue blade is going to be. And on some other multi-tools, kind of like Gerber's, they're actually labeling it so you can find what kind of blade is there, which I think is very useful. Here's the Gerber Diesel again. You can kind of see they label the file, they label the picture of the knife, saw, and stuff like that. I think you'll see that in the future. Awesome. That'll bring us to this side of the tool. I'm going to start on this side where the scissors are. Standard Victorinox scissors, like we've seen in their larger sized Swiss Army knives. Excellent. Spring loaded. They just work. You know, Victorinox scissors are some of the best in the business, and pretty much everybody watching this video has probably proven them in their own Swiss Army knives over the years. There's no surprises here. They're on the larger size, kind of like the Champ style of scissors. Outstanding. I have no bad critiques to say on them. Easily replace spring if that should ever be necessary. And then next up, again, using our fingernail to extract. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, love this. The awl. I call this lots of things, dudes. I apologize if my nomenclature doesn't match yours. A lot of guys will call it the reamer, the awl, the punch, whatever. The thing is, it gives you a drilling capability. Just like I've said in my other reviews. Okay, we're able to drill a hole, to enlarge a hole with, again, out thrashing our knife. That is the huge advantage of having a multi-tool. We use that, by the way, to extract those chips from that knife, and again, you can kind of see that we nicked that blade up, getting to the softer steel of the Victorinox. Just keep that in mind, something to think about. Then we have a long shank Phillips driver. I showed this in the multi-tool continuum. It's excellent. Gives you lots of reach and the capability to get in there where perhaps some of the shorter drivers, again, like the Charge series, just can't hack it. They can't get in deep enough. It's a compromise. It's not obviously going to be as capable as a purpose-built driver. Pretty darn close. Maybe a downside, though, and let's keep it real, dudes, is you don't have the versatility in a SwissTool of multiple bits. Okay, like you do in the Charge series, Wave, Surge, anything that can take removable bits. When we have that capability, you know, really, even though we don't have the depth of the driver shaft, we can change all kinds of things and match up the bit head with the task at hand. The SwissTool cannot do that. You've opted for some common size drivers when you buy a SwissTool. Think about that. Think about if that's good enough for you and good enough for your purposes. And that will take us to another long shank driver. And I think this is, what is it, 2mm flat bladed driver. You could use this to dig stuff out as well. Be careful, you don't want to bend it. The steel is a little bit, just a little bit on the soft side. It won't shatter on you, but it will bend, as you've seen in some of the other tool wear that I've experienced in this SwissTool so far. And then finally, well, I already showed that. Yep, showed everything on that side. That is the tool set on a Victorinox SwissTool. Very capable, 10.5 ounces. Okay, and what you hear a lot when you hear the Victorinox SwissTool talked about is strength, and that'll take us to the next talking point. Strength, toughness, and I'll talk about comfort here in a second. And I will agree. All my data points, like I said earlier, indicate that this is a very durable multi-tool as long as you don't abuse it, and you know, maybe digging metal out of that log was kind of pushing the envelope. But you know, honestly, a multi-tool, an MT has to be capable of doing that. But it is tough. It's well made, thick steel on the handles. I didn't experience any flex in my testing of it. And it is very comfortable to use the pliers, even when you're bearing down on them, because they're rounded in profile, as you can see, as all multi-tools should be, least of heavy duty in my opinion, because you might be exerting a lot of force on that. On the downside, again, keeping it real, you don't have those radius shoulders when it's in its closed position and you're accessing, I don't know, let's say the main blade, and you're doing extended cutting like that. You're going to have very sharp shoulders for that. Contrasting against an adjacent category, again, Leatherman Charge, it has rounded shoulders and rounded edges, even when you're deploying and using the exterior tools. So that, honestly, is probably an improvement that could be made in successive generations of the SwissTool to round that. Get rid of those sharp shoulders. I still want to be able to access all this just like they have, but come on, man. Let's make it more comfortable in the use of all these exterior tools. Incidentally, you see how the lock works. It's just a simple slide affair, and it works perfectly. And a lot of guys talk about this. The snick of a SwissTool, the precision at which it locks. Absent in a lot of other competitors. Let's be real, it is. But the fit and finish throughout the Victorinox SwissTool is very impressive. And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit in the talking points, and that gets into the second type of cool. This is probably one of the most ultimate fondling, yeah, there's that word, multi-tools. It's just fun to handle and to collect and to have. But here's Nut and Fancy's take. If it's not useful in roll, if it doesn't have a lot of capability, for me, I really don't care how cool it looks, because it loses its charm in that, you know, in the loss of capability in roll. There's a lot of cool knives, there's a lot of cool MTs out there, but unless they're useful in roll and do well what they're designed to do, I'm not really interested. To me, it's an additional cool factor to have the Victorinox SwissTool so highly polished, at least in this RS version. I think the blackened version's also very, very cool looking and very capable in roll, as I've shown in my own use. How's the sheaths with it? And they do come with sheaths. This one, to be exact, at least the ones I got. Not too impressive. You know, it's a simple nylon sheath that it comes with. It fits well. It doesn't have any exterior pockets in it, which is good because, you know, the SwissTool as it comes, unlike its brother, the Spirit, is actually self-contained. There's really no additional stuff that you would put on it. Actually, I take that back a little bit. There is one additional thing you can put on it. See this right here? This is to hold this thing right here, the corkscrew, and also its mini screwdriver. It slides right in here, and I borrowed this from the SwissTool. That's how that fits. And then you can unscrew this mini screwdriver, reverse it, and then you'd have that capability with your SwissTool. It does not come with the tool. You'd have to buy it separate, and then you'd have to figure out a way to port it, adding a little bit of weight and complexity to what is otherwise a pretty elegant tool design. But there's your pouch. Decent, not MOLLE capable, but well made and lightweight. They make a better one, and I got one, and it's this one here. This is also a Victorinox multi-tool pouch, and what do you know, it has a little container in here for a couple additional tool sets. A little bit bigger of a belt loop. Uses Velcro, which I'm not super fond to see, as opposed to the snap on this one. So just something to think about. The most impressive heavy-duty multi-tool sheath that I have seen so far, though, guys, I will tell you right now, is a SuperTool 300 tactical sheath. Here it is right here. I'll review this separately. I'm sure other guys will try to race me to it. But there you go. MOLLE compatible. Yeah, it has Velcro, but it's very heavy-duty Velcro, and there's a lot of it in case part of it gets clogged up. But in category, this is the best sheath I've seen so far for a multi-tool. It's easy enough to swap them out, though. You know that. If you don't like this, then pay, I don't know, $5-7. Get this stronger and better Victorinox sheath. And if you really want, you might be able to find those Victorinox leather sheaths floating around. This one's for the SwissTool Spirit. That's handsome too. You know, some guys might like a different color, but I really like that brown coloration on that. Okay, I think I forgot to say a couple things in regards to the ST300. The file, and did I show you guys that? I may have forgot the file. Here we go. On the SwissTool, the blackened version is just like that. I think it's capable. It goes all the way to the end, which I think is very advantageous. It's also, you know, serrated on the top and bottom. At least, I'm sorry, on the bottom at least, so we can groove with the file. In comparison to the SwissTool the SuperTool 300, that's its file right there. And it has basically the same exact design. I've heard reports that, I don't know, the ST300 is a better file, and then the SwissTools is better. I just don't really know. And I didn't do a lot of filing with these, so I can't really tell you with great authority. I'm just glad it has a file. You know, I think anything from the medium size on up, EMT should have one. There's lots of great things about the SuperTool 300 in contrast to the, you know, the SwissTool. Talking about the extraction of the tool, some guys may like that better. The blade shape might be preferred over that. I will maintain the pliers are better. They don't flex as much under cutting loads, and they have those replaceable cutters. But a lot of it is the same. You know, some dudes will say, well, I like the hollow ground capability on the core. That's a brother to the SuperTool 300 and the ST300. You know how they're hollow ground, you see that on the drivers, and also how they're kind of matte finished. I have heard some reports from various users that say, you know, if you polish the tool so much, I haven't really experienced this myself, but if you polish the tool so much on this RS version, for instance, you'll get some slippage as you're using your driver bits in the fastener. Well, let me get this one right here. See how that's kind of, I have to do a little hunting around. It's probably because I'm not expert in the SwissTool yet, as far as where everything is exactly. See how that's polished? Having used Swiss Army knives for many years, I've really never found that to be a problem. And it's exactly the same type of finish on there, the polished finish. The upside to having this polish, by the way, dudes, if you're in a high humidity environment, it's going to be very rust resistant. Maybe more so than the Charge, the other Leatherman SuperTool 300. You know, so there's an advantage to it. I think what truly makes a SwissTool so amazing is its value. And I'll just ballpark this. For around $60, maybe around $55 for the polished, $65 for the blackened SwissTool, but the RS around $55, an amazing value. I mean, the fit and finish, the pride of ownership that you get, you can see why it is so popular the world over. You can see why it is so hard to find. Incidentally, look in annotation. I'll tell you where I think the place that has the best prices on SwissTool. When I'm filming this, November 2009, though, this is hard to find. They're sold out in lots of places, even back ordered and shown as such on the Victorinox homepage. At least in the United States. They have worldwide websites, I think. But man, you get a lot in return. More so than a lot of different multi-tools. The Charge series, again, runs around $100. It's an elegant, very purposeful, versatile design. Lots of strength for what it is, but it's around $100. And some guys may not dig that so much. You know, the SuperTool 300, you know, that's going to be more. Around 80-ish, 85 or something like that. It's more money. Victorinox has always been known for value, delivering to us amazing knife designs, and in this case, another tool design along the lines of their very versatile Swiss Army knives, but with more capabilities, depending on what you're talking about, for a very low price. The ultimate fondling multi-tool? Yeah, I think so, at least as of 2009. That precision at which it locks up, the way it actuates, the sound, the precision at which each individual tool comes out and locks is unsurpassed as of now. We may see some other designs that do it too. It gets a lot right with very few shortcomings. Make sure you can take that 10.5 ounce weight and roll. That's about the only major downside I can see. The sharp edges are the sharp corners I said. I could live with those, especially for the cost. The sheath is easily upgradable. So an amazing multi-tool by Victorinox. Heavy duty, great pliers, very versatile inside and out. That is the Victorinox SuperTool. And I probably forgot some stuff, but that's going to be my review. Nut and Fancy signing off. If you want, again, to impress a really cool friend or a loved one with a tool, what a great idea this is. Good luck finding it. If you can, it's worth it for the small amount of money you'll pay for it. Out. See ya.